Man, what's up? What's up? Happy Luke Doty Thursday, as it is now known at the South Carolina Football Ops Building. Hope everybody's having a great day. It is GC Live. We are brought to you by Affordable Medical Equipment. Check them out at affordablemedicalusa.com, 803-926-1493. Again, affordablemedicalusa.com, 803-926-1493. They are, of course, home of the Game Day Chair, and they help make our usually daily show possible. We took a little break yesterday, back in action today. Hope everybody is doing well out there. Hopefully we still got some folks joining us in our hopefully one day to be named and sponsored, potentially, chat room. What's up to the unofficial Degenerates group, I believe is what they've been called. Chris, never a dull moment in Gamecock Nation right now.
Man, you said it. Every single night for the past, I don't know, however many days it's been, I've absolutely been crashing, like just dead tired at the end of the day. Mentally draining, pretty taxing. But it has been interesting, man. Never a dull moment, like you said. That's a good way to sum it up. Still rolling through the coaching search here. We're, it's still relatively, it's not super old. It hadn't been a month like it was in 2015. It was almost 2 months at that point. Don't know how we got through that one, but there's been some fun times too along with this one. So looking forward to, in the coming days, seeing a resolution, seeing this thing get to the end.
Yeah, the obviously search rolls on. I think South Carolina is still hopeful. I personally am still very hopeful myself that there will be, I know you are too, Chris, that there will be some resolution to this coming up in the not so distant future. Obviously, South Carolina has a football game on Saturday. Kentucky, that really could be an intriguing game just from the potential weather forecast alone. I think you can tell, Chris, when it's sort of the end of the year, neither team has a ton to necessarily play for at this point, when the big topic of discussion on media day is the weather. And then, of course, what actually would be a really cool accomplishment would be Kevin Harris. So that I think, him getting to 1,000 yards, potentially 10-game season, SEC schedule, obviously only. And I think a situation where it's hard to compare one season to another because it's been such a different year, but would be incredibly impressive if Kevin Harris could get to that number. And he currently sits 72 yards away. Hopefully he'll get that on Saturday. We shall see. We'll also be joined by CatsIllustrated.com's Justin Rowland. He'll be on in about 10 or 11 minutes to give us a little bit of perspective on Kentucky and really what we know or what he knows about them and what their program has been through this year as well. Let's talk a little bit of coaching search, Chris, because I know that's at the top of everyone's mind right now. Even Tyler, weighing in here on Facebook, says that he hates to say it, but it's Napier's job to lose. I don't know to the extent of what detail you want to give, but I think it's safe to say that we can disagree with that notion that, certainly they're still going through the due diligence. The process is not over. And we sort of said earlier in the week when you had rumors, and I would say reports loosely, you had like social media reports of it's a done deal. It's Shane Beamer. And, I think we sort of tried to dial it back a little bit and say, look, guys, they're going to complete the process of this search. Shane Beamer was in the lead at the time. He's still in the lead at this time. The search is not over. It's not official, but also all signs continue to point towards Shane Beamer at this time.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't agree with the notion that Billy Napier is out in front heading into the final few days, of the search. We knew that South Carolina, early in the week, like you said, Wes, when all this stuff was coming out, we could say, look, here's where things are, but they're going to complete the process. You're not going to hire anybody. What was the one day, by this Wednesday, which was yesterday, that was something that had been rumored. There was not any truth to that. We knew that does South Carolina have sort of a time frame they would like to meet to have this thing done? Yes, and it is by this weekend if things go well, and they are progressing towards that point now. But there are still some more interviews to be conducted this week. We fully realize and are cognizant because of all the questions we got on the Insiders Forum last night, throughout yesterday evening, last night, about some stuff that had been said about Billy Napier. We got a lot of questions about that, but confident that he's not the front runner right now going into this week. And in fact, if you categorize a front runner, all the other candidates involved are still at this point chasing Shane Beamer. That's just sort of the reality of the situation. So, and Tyler, appreciate you said he subscribed actually today. We really appreciate your support, man. Hope you're enjoying the content so far. We had a report last night for Tyler and all the other subscribers, Gamecock Central, on the Insiders Forum, that gives you a little bit more detail on sort of what's been going on and just some more stuff on timeline and just some generalities with the coaching search, some things to know.
Yeah. So if you want to be like Tyler and want to be like really a absolute ton of people that have signed up in the last couple of weeks since the news broke that Muschamp was out, you can do that. We actually do have a free trial right now available. This is something we used to push on our podcast quite a bit. We're going to sort of bring this back at least for a couple of days. If you use the code GCPOD, that will get you on with a 30-day free trial. If you're one of those people that's always been like, I'm not paying for my Gamecock news, you want to give it a shot without really having any skin in the game, this will be your chance. Put in GCPOD at checkout. There's a promotional code field. If you just go to GamecockCentral.com, hit subscribe, it'll tell you the prices. But when you get to checkout, put it in the code field, GCPOD. You'll get 30 days free, and you'll be good to go there. By the way, Kev Roche actually joining us
on
the show for the first time. How long have we been doing this show? 3 months now?
Yeah, something like that. And we have definitely, there have been some hard times given to Kev via text message regarding his lack of appearances. And so I'm glad that he's finally graced us with his presence. I'm very honored.
How much are we paying for him to just show up, man? I mean,
I don't know. I shudder at the bill that we're going to get.
Yeah, we've name dropped him before. I thought if we name dropped him, he would just poof and show up. I'll tell you one thing. I wish I had one of those shirts that he's selling on Twitter to wear during the show. Those are pretty tight. I don't know if you've seen those or not. By the way, Kev, trying to find what's your Twitter handle? At Kev Roche, but spelled how it sounds. KEVROSAY. Kev does a great job drawing stuff for ESPN. Scott Van Pelt has done some stuff, commissioned stuff with the Braves. He's got a book that he's an artist for. So Kev's the man. I'm glad if Kev is joining the show, then we must be doing something right. Matt asks our thoughts on Shane Beamer potentially holding out for VT, and I don't really think that's something that South Carolina fans should waste much energy worrying about. Would you agree, Chris?
Yeah, I would. If Virginia Tech is already behind the scenes has been putting out some feelers in the coaching industry to figure out if they moved on from Justin Fuente, what it could look like, what their market could be like. Would Beamer be somebody that they reached out to? Indications we've gotten, yes, along with some other candidates. A lot of the typical guys that you've seen come up with searches around, this region in the Southeast, potentially Auburn, potentially Tennessee, whatever it may be, are guys that you would see come up there as well. Beamer being one of them. And obviously the added sort of bonus there is that his father happens to be Frank Beamer, the legendary coach from Blacksburg. And so that said, the indications we've gotten are, even if it was an all things being equal situation, this is a place for a lot of reasons that Shane Beamer is very interested in being. You got to consider born in Charleston, think his kids were born here. He's already coached here. His father, look, following your father at a place is not always an easy thing. Some people are interested in it, some people aren't. And so this has always been a job that Shane Beamer's eyed. And I do agree with you, Wes. I think it would be a situation where if that scenario presented itself, we have no idea that it will. The timelines don't seem to even match right now. And Virginia Tech obviously still has a coach. Their timeline's probably pushed back. So in that case, I don't think, like you said, I think you put it perfectly, probably not something to worry about right now.
Well, and Chris, I think people have gotten a little ahead of themselves about VT in that, as you just said, they still have a coach. It's been interesting. You have somebody like D'Angelo Hall, former VT stud DB, sort of just publicly pushing for Shane Beamer, and it's like, well,
yeah,
y'all do have a current coach right now. That's kind of I don't know about that look, but Kyle says he's jumping on the Colin Taylor coaching bandwagon. Colin could be had for cheap, according to sources, but problem would be I don't know if I trust him to pick out food for team meals because that's a very big deal on official visits when those are available again. Very big deal in the clubhouse as far as just keeping everybody happy. His food takes are so bad. I think that's a box that I'm not willing to go forward without it being checked. So that's probably why I would go against a Colin Taylor coaching deal. Chris, you want to tell everybody about the game day chair real quick while I get Justin Rowland queued up?
Absolutely. So the Game Day Chair, our primary sponsor here on GC Live, the daily show. We appreciate their support. Make sure you check those guys out as well. AffordableMedicalUSA.com. If you want to check out the Game Day Chair, you can give them a call, 803-926-1493. Ask for the Game Day Chair, the Maxi Comfort Cloud with Twilight, a variety of lounge positions, TV watching, lay flat, zero gravity positions, all at the push of a button, and an awesome recliner experience to add to your man cave, your living room, wherever you want to put it. Out in your garage, doesn't really matter. Check out the Game Day Chair from AffordableMedicalUSA.com. Links, if you're listening to the pod, should be in the description. If you're on YouTube, like we hope you are, streaming live, it is also in the description there. So make sure you check those guys out.
So while I'm getting Justin up, interesting question here from V-Boyce. On what is that, Periscope? Who is this coach's TJ Brunson? Obviously, it'll be a little different. They'll be hopping on a Zoom, right, or hopping on a regular call.
Yeah,
Muschamp, somewhat famously, went and saw Brunson. Went and saw, of course, Brian Edwards. Mm-hmm. Who, if you're Beamer or you're the coach, who are you reaching out to first, man?
That was a really good question. As soon as I saw it come up, I sort of my brain went 1,000 different places, but I'm not sure, because you think in state there's not like that one guy that you can point to,
I got my answer.
All right, what's yours? Let's hear yours. That maybe will spark something in my mind. Or
it's Gunnar Stockton, man.
Well, yeah, okay. See, where I went somebody in this current class.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where I went. But yeah, I got to agree with you there. Yeah.
Which they, this is one thing we've talked about. If you hire somebody like Shane Beamer, you probably just with him, personally himself and some of his staff, and not to say Beamer's the only person that this would be the case, but you're going to have some connections to guys that you're already recruiting, and I think as far as Gunnar goes, I think Shane Beamer already knows him from what I've heard, and that can be a little bit of help there as far as comfort level. But I tend to think there's going to be an interesting blueprint here, because how much time do you spend on 2021? How much time are you putting into – we talked about this, Chris. You got to put some time into your current – you're almost re-recruiting your current roster. or for the new staff, you're recruiting for the first time your current roster. You just have the advantage of them being already on your campus. And then past that, I think you obviously have to look ahead and start looking ahead to the class of 2022 and the transfer market there. I see Justin down there. Justin, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to roll, man. I'll bring you in. He is good to go. Let's bring him in right now. It is Justin Rowland from CatsIllustrated.com. Justin, we appreciate the time, man. How's it going?
It's great. Thanks for having me on, guys. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, we're great. In many ways, Justin, it feels like this has been the longest season of all time. In other ways, it kind of feels like it just started. So what has the experience – we'll start very broad. What has the experience been like for you covering a team in a pandemic, and what's sort of the vibe been around the Kentucky football program in this very strange 2020 season?
I mean, we have these internal deliberations as a website staff about why we're even at the games, why we're sending people to cover the games. What's the point when everything post-game is on Zoom and going on the road? You're worried about safety. You don't know if you're going to travel 500 miles or somebody is and have the game canceled at the last minute. And Kentucky's dealt with everything that other teams have, this long grind of a season without the typical July break and guys basically quarantining on campus with an entire fan base bearing down on them and expecting them not to do anything selfish that could jeopardize everybody else and seniors. But at the same time, Kentucky's also had the tragic passing of offensive line coach John Schlarman and a couple of injuries that have just been excruciating. And it just seems like it's been one body blow after another. And this week, Mark Stoops kind of dropped a bomb that he wasn't 100% sure that the team would want to play in a bowl game. And I think they will, but just the fact that they're even having that conversation speaks to the challenges that they've gone through this year.
Justin, you mentioned the injuries, and obviously most teams have dealt with some form or fashion of injuries, opt-outs, COVID, contact tracing. Tell us where Kentucky is with all that as they head into the game this weekend.
It's tough to tell. They've kept a really tight lid on a lot of that stuff. They were missing about 18 guys each of the last two games against Alabama and Florida. They really haven't been missing too many of their most key pieces, with the exception of Jamin Davis, who is having an All-American kind of season at linebacker, and he should be back. He should be good. And running back Chris Rodriguez missed a little bit of time, and he should be back, and he should be good. So, you got quarterback Terry Wilson should be good to play. Cornerback Kelvin Joseph has been one of the top playmakers on the team, and he did opt out this week, said that he was going to focus on the NFL draft, transferred in from LSU, sat out last season, has 4 picks. Really, frankly, an up and down season, and he's going to be a one and done in Lexington. So maybe rub some people the wrong way that he's opted out after not being with the program for so long. But I suspect they'll be pretty much playing with a full deck.
Justin, I feel like really for a lot of South Carolina's opponents this year, I've not had near as in-depth of a vibe of what to expect. Between us focusing on a coaching search the last couple of weeks, plus just guys each week are in and out, like you said, and you never know who's going to be playing and who's not. So just speaking generally, I know Bobo kept mentioning the word physical. This is a very physical Kentucky team. That's what he noticed on film. But what can you just tell us about this Kentucky team as far as their strengths, their weaknesses, and now that you're looking at being towards the end of a full season, what is sort of the MO of this Kentucky team?
Well, at their best, they're gonna run the ball downhill, and they're gonna push you around on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They got a pretty good front seven on defense. The defense is a bend but don't break unit. It's not gonna just knock you back on your heels on tape, but it's a group that's competitive most weeks. The offensive line has been one of the best in program history for several seasons now. But you got to admit it's been a little bit of a disappointing season. I think people assumed that Kentucky had a chance to go maybe 6-4 against a very difficult schedule because they brought back so many pieces from last year's team. And the previous year, they had won 18 games over the previous 2 seasons. And they're going to finish 3-7 or 4-6. And, you don't know how much of that to chalk up to the tragedies that they've dealt with in the locker room. They're not running the ball as well as they did last year. I think one of the reasons that they've struggled a little bit more than we've expected is everybody thought that with Bowden gone, they're going to move back to Terry Wilson at quarterback and there was going to be more balance on offense. But the passing game has been just as bad with a real quarterback as there was out of the Wildcat last season. It's weird. It's got to be one of the worst passing games in the country. But if you can't stop the run, they will run on you. And that's what South Carolina probably has to worry about.
Yeah, no doubt that has been a struggle for South Carolina. When you look at their body of work defensively with the run and then them being, undermanned, on the defensive line. To zoom out before we get back into like game scenarios for the game this weekend, a general view of the Mark Stoops era. He's done a really good job, in my view, of building that program over time. Is it ahead of schedule in your mind? Like, what was if we would zoom back out to, when he took this job, what was your expectations? Has it exceeded expectations? Has it exceeded fan base expectations of where they should be?
Because this is his first head coaching job, I don't think anybody really knew what to expect. He's grown a lot as a head coach. I don't think he really knew what kind of program he wanted to have when he took over. He obviously knew how to put together a recruiting staff. I guess the big story of the Stoops era is Kentucky used to recruit, if you look at the national rankings on Rivals, in the 50s and 60s nationally, and there's really no excuse for an SEC team to do that, but that's just what they had always done. And now as a program, they're consistently pushing for the top 25, top 30, top 35. So they're more in line with what you would expect of a middling, lower tier SEC team in terms of recruiting. So they've narrowed the talent gap. It took them a while to get things going off the ground, and they've really settled in on this power identity the past few seasons, moving away from the air raid of the early Stoops era, and that seems to have worked until this year. And I think the big conversation taking place within the Big Blue Nation, and I think probably internally on the staff, is, has football changed so much at every level, at the college level, that you just can't win without a more dynamic passing game? And their struggles in the passing game seem to have caused the program to plateau this season. You're looking at next year, they got to replace a lot of key pieces, so it could be a rebuilding season. I think there's a real chance that they scrap what they've been doing on offense this offseason and try to catch up to the trend in the rest of the sport. But no question, he's done a great job. He's the second winningest program coach in program history behind only Bear Bryant. So yeah, he's exceeded probably most reasonable expectations.
I know there was some outside hype when Joey Gatewood gets there, transfers in. What is sort of the thought of him moving forward, and is he sort of the guy next year, or that's not really necessarily the case?
That's not necessarily the case. They've got Bo Allen, who was a 4-star recruit and a true freshman on this year's team. Again, obviously he'll be a freshman next year also. And Allen is probably the better passer of the two. If you talk to people behind the scenes, they like the way he can look off defenders. He does some things with intangibles in the throw game that they haven't had in a while. And I think they've been reluctant to get him more playing time this season because they just realized the whole passing game, especially the receiver position, is so broken. They don't want to wreck a young guy's confidence by putting him in a bad position. Gatewood looked okay when he first went onto the field. I think it might have been the Missouri game. And then he really got thrown out there against Georgia, which was a tough position for him to be in. But he's not as far along as Allen in the passing game. He holds the ball for a really long time. I don't think he sees the field as quickly as the coaches had probably hoped. And I think they hoped that he was going to be a really physical runner, not a burner like Terry Wilson. But he really has struggled in the run game, frankly. He hasn't been really a dynamic athlete. It sounds like I'm down on him, but I think I'm reflecting a lot of feelings of fans and people around the program. It's not necessarily Gatewood's program moving forward.
Justin, about Mark Stoops, obviously defensive background that he brought to Lexington, but the personnel, the job he's done upgrading their personnel defensively, big physical front, some long DBs. He's done a good job recruiting there. Tell us a little bit about that defense and just, how they played this season, where they've been strong, where they've been vulnerable.
It's a sound defense. It's a SEC caliber defense. You're not going to just blow them off the ball. They got a big nose tackle, 360-pound Quentin Bohanna, who's missed a little bit of action with injury, but he's tough to move up front. And so you got to try to be balanced against them and mix it up. You can't be one-dimensional. Josh Paschal, who had his own battle with cancer, moved from jack linebacker down to defensive end, and he's been one of their better players as well. Really, the breakout of the season has been Jamin Davis. He was kind of a middling starter. He didn't even really begin to start until late last season. And then in this his redshirt junior season, he's come on and is one of the best linebackers in the country. Probably is going to have a decision to make after this year. Really good, versatile middle linebacker. And then back in the secondary, it was like the number 2 pass defense in the country by almost every metric last season. And it's taken a little bit of a step back, in part because they've played some really good passing games. Bo Nix and Seth Williams in the opener did really well. Matt Corral and Ole Miss, Alabama, Florida, that's hurt the numbers. But it's sound defense across the board. You can't really look at one position unit and say this is where they're strong. They're pretty good at just about every spot.
So around here, and I think it might just be a South Carolina thing, Justin. The weather has become a big topic of discussion for Saturday and how it's going to be super cold. I don't know. Last I saw, there's maybe a chance of snow. South Carolina quarterback Luke Doty said he's literally never seen snow in person. So, I don't know. Is that I think that may be a factor on the South Carolina side. Is that do you see that being a factor in this game from the Kentucky side?
I mean, you got one of the most northernmost schools in the SEC in Kentucky. You're probably a little bit more acquainted with, I wouldn't say frigid temperatures, but just maybe something more resembling winter. That could help. I don't know. I just think there are a lot of variables that I feel like we can break down the X's and O's in this game, but it's really going to come down to things that are tough to predict. How is South Carolina in this transition? Are they going to come to play on the road last game of the year? Kentucky been through a lot this season. They've taken a couple of really tough losses in a row. How are they going to respond on senior day? I think there's a lot of intangibles that are just tough to predict in this matchup. The weather is probably another one.
Justin, last thing I've got for you, man, just specific to the matchup. I think Kentucky, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, 11, 12-point favorite, somewhere around there, double-digit favorite at home against the Gamecocks. Fair, not fair? Where are you at with your assessment of maybe the line and how you could see this game playing out, bearing in mind that everything about this game is very, very tough to predict, but just based on what we know?
I got to say, it's hard to imagine Kentucky being almost a 2-touchdown favorite against an SEC team right now. I mean, this after watching what Vanderbilt did against them. I mean, Vanderbilt almost beat them, and Vanderbilt has been one of the worst teams in SEC recent history this year. I haven't watched as much South Carolina as I've watched of Kentucky. When I've seen that line and I saw that line initially, I was like, wow, it must be pretty bad down there. Because we've seen this before from Kentucky. A couple of other times in the Stoops era, by the end of the season, when nothing is working on offense, the offense gets really ugly, like really ugly. Like they had, I think against Florida, which was the 65th total defense in the country, 6 consecutive 3-and-outs, maybe 7 consecutive drives without a first down. It's a bad offense, and that's going to keep South Carolina in the game unless they shoot themselves in the foot. So I would be inclined to take South Carolina in terms of the spread, but I'll probably pick Kentucky to win a close one.
And final thing for me as well, Justin, what are your maybe keys to victory, or just one or two main things you'd be focused on? And again, what will just be a difficult to predict game as it has been all year long, I think.
I mean, if Kentucky can line up and just run the ball, if they can push them off the ball, I think they'll win. But if Kentucky comes out and they make a lot of penalties and they get behind down and distance, then this is not an offense that can move the ball. So I would say Kentucky has the advantage if they don't make a lot of mental mistakes, with the caveat that they have made a lot of mental mistakes recently. So I would expect something low scoring, something ugly, and something that could turn on turnovers and mistakes.
Good stuff, man. As always, Justin, I know you're busy, man. We'll let you get back to it, but appreciate the time. Enjoy the game on Saturday. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
Yep, have a good one. Check out Justin's work at catsillustrated.com. You can get the Kentucky perspective of this game, and if you're a Kentucky fan listener or watching, you can get Kentucky basketball coverage. It's obviously pretty important over there, Chris. But check out, as always, man, all of our guests have been very knowledgeable throughout the Rivals Network, I would say, and interesting stuff from there, man. So obviously we always learn something from these, Chris, and my big takeaway there, and I frankly have not watched really a whole heck of a lot of Kentucky at all this year. My big takeaway was the last thing he said, and just how bad this Kentucky offense has been. Now, you sort of put that across from the fact South Carolina's defense is missing many of their best players up front.
Right.
Which one is worse? I think is the question. If Kentucky can run the football against a depleted South Carolina front, then maybe they score 28 points fairly easily, and it's tough on South Carolina. If Kentucky continues to be, it sounds like they're bad even against bad defenses. It becomes a really low scoring game. And then I think this Luke Doty led offense has shown enough ability to sort of create some plays at times, particularly playing a defense not near as fast probably as what they faced against Georgia, maybe a little more in tune to the Missouri game. Then maybe you say South Carolina's offense can gut out, enough points to go win this game.
And that is the key. They're going to have to – this defense for South Carolina is going to have to play better up front than they have against most teams. Like you look at Georgia and, we always think of Georgia's identity going back to the last game is run the football, but that's not even been necessarily their bread and butter this year, Georgia. But they gashed South Carolina. Now, to be fair, South Carolina was down several guys. Rod Fitton, who has barely played this year, was their leading snap getter in that game. He played 51 snaps at Buck, and that's just not – several guys were out. But they're probably going to be down some guys again this game, or some guys are going to be banged up still if they do play. And so it's a question again. In Kentucky, we do know, has some capable backs. They have a big offensive line with a lot of experience. And so the issue they have not been very balanced this year. And against teams that are pretty good or even not that great on defense, they have struggled when they haven't been able to run it. So if you're South Carolina, obviously we've said this every week, they got to be able to slow the run. If you can do that, you'll have a better shot against Kentucky than you will against, say, Georgia or some of these other teams that are more dynamic at the quarterback position, at the receiver position. But look at Kentucky. They scored 10 against Georgia, 3 against Bama. They did score 35 against Vanderbilt, which, as Justin said, not a very good football team with Vandy. They scored 3 against Georgia, 10 against Missouri. They had a little bit more success earlier in the season, and it's sort of fallen off a cliff. So, it has been a weird season, and Kentucky's had a weird season as too, from what I've observed, because offensively they haven't been as good as anticipated, and I think their record reflects that. I think the expectations are a little bit higher, and we know about that here. People didn't have super high expectations, but for us with South Carolina, it was more of we thought the defense would be better, and it completely fell off a cliff. So they're seeing some of that in Lexington on the other side of the ball.
Yeah, let's tie this all together with what we were talking about at the beginning, Kevin Harris, and whether or not he gets to 1,000 yards, and then tying it in with the keys to this game. Looking it up right now on CFBstats.com, which is my go-to quick stat website. Kentucky allowing right at 152 yards per game on the ground. That is, almost right in the middle as far as the conference goes. 8th in the SEC. If you go with yards per carry allowed, 4.05. So that's 7th in the league. So right in the middle of the pack. I think obviously everybody, as far as individual awards and ending the year on a positive note, other than getting a win, I think getting Kevin Harris to 1,000 yards is one of the final goals for this team, that is attainable. And you sort of look at that. I hate to go into I hate to take your catchphrase from last year's podcast. It's going to be close. Those numbers alone, Chris, tell me that it's probably going to be right. It's probably going to go into the second half with us wondering, can Harris get to that number? But I would say if Harris does get that number and they're continuing to feed him and they're having success, that speaks to South Carolina's ability to also go win this football game. Obviously, with Kevin Harris, though, there's always a chance that he just breaks off a long one early. We've seen him do that. and gets a big chunk of it and makes it a little bit easier on him. But if this is a grinded out game, I could see him being right around that 70, 80, 90-yard mark or something individually in this game.
Well, and here's a big thing. If I'm not mistaken, we haven't mentioned him. Shi Smith, apparently on track to play. Huge for this team because even though Shi, every time he stepped on the field, is a marked man, everybody knows Shi Smith is, let's call it like it is, he's been the only legitimate receiving threat at receiver this year who's been consistent and has made plays. He's still made plays, even with everybody knowing that. At the very minimum, he's a guy you really have to account for and make sure that he doesn't beat you, and so that can potentially open up some other things for you. So he's in the game. That helps you. That does give you a little bit more of an opportunity to go score some points. The bigger concern, I think, heading into this game, it's obviously, can South Carolina put up points? That's going to be the case against any team. But they've shown the capacity to do that to some degree. Even against Georgia, they put together, as Spurrier said, they made some yards against Georgia. They put up more points than some teams who were a lot less decimated put up against Georgia. I'm not saying it was a great performance. It was not. But it gave you a little bit of, okay, that they can go score a little bit, enough to go win at times. The issue was the defense, as it has been all year. And then against Georgia, they really exploited it because South Carolina was so undermanned. What did they started the game with, I think, 2 starters that started the first game on defense, just completely decimated and missing a lot of backups too. So that's the bigger concern is, are you going to let a Kentucky team that's really scuffled offensively come out and establish the line of scrimmage and run the football on you? If that happens, it's going to be a tough game to win for South Carolina.
You don't see this approach very often, Chris, but if Kentucky is as bad, I mean, Justin used the word broken about their passing game. He said it's just broken. That goes well beyond your quarterback. That's a pass protection. That's a receiver. That's if it's completely broken, I'm not so sure you don't just put. I mean, teams talk about putting 8 in the box, and when they say that, they mean you're just putting that extra safety up there. I'm not so sure you don't just put both safeties up there and literally dare Kentucky to throw the ball down the field, because that's not an approach that I think we ever would have seen Will Muschamp use, where you're just putting everybody up there. But against a team that has struggled to throw the ball that much, and when your current team is probably going to get knocked back, at least at times, it's a pretty good Kentucky O-line in the run game, especially. I think there's a case to be made for that. The other side, as you mentioned, Shi Smith, as our degenerates are talking about in the chat, this will be Luke Doty's first chance to go play with Shi on the field. This will be the first chance for Luke, Shi, and Nick Muse to then all three be on the field. And we've seen Nick Muse sort of, I would say, come on pretty strong since Doty has come on himself, has started to be able to play, because you see Luke look at him a little bit more. He's throwing the ball his way. And Nick, he had the early season drops, but we always have known Nick was a talented guy. And I think basically if you look at Nick, he's a guy, I think, who feeds off getting the football as opposed to getting 2 targets for an entire 60 minutes. So, there are maybe some things offensively that could come together for South Carolina in this game that have not quite been there before.
Yeah, and I think, the other thing with Muse is, with Shi out for the Georgia game, I think Mike Bobo looked at it and said, what is our game plan? The way he put it is, I'm trying to watch the tape and see how we can get a first down, which is a very valid concern against Georgia. And he looked at it and probably came to the conclusion of, okay, well, we play Luke Doty because he gives us a chance with his athleticism, obviously. And then my other guys are going to be Kevin Harris and they're going to be Nick Muse. Those are your other ones. So he schemed up some stuff for Nick Muse in that game that worked. It wasn't just a coincidence, right? I mean, credit Nick, credit Luke, but Mike Bobo also did a really good job of scheming that up. And I think he's done that a lot this year, to give credit where it's due, where South Carolina has walked into every game this year with people knowing there are two guys in Shy 2 to 3, and Shy, Kevin Harris, and then you count Muse, who are getting the football. Those are the guys that you can't let beat you, and yet they've still been able to be productive. Kevin Harris, very productive. I mean, more productive than we've seen in a long time. And Shy Smith has also had a very good year. And so definitely having those three guys, it does give you some hope if you're a Gamecock fan, to be able, like I said earlier, to go out there and score some points on offense.
Yep. So we'll of course see if that happens. I'm curious to see if the weather is a completely overblown media generated discussion point or if it's a real thing. But I do know, I'm sure Under Armour is going to have them hooked up with some nice weather gear. But in the hotel before the game, hopefully they've packed, Chris, their Dead Soxy socks. And if they do, they not only will have their feet warm, but they'll be feeling very, very comfortable as they're waiting for game day.
I don't know. I'm going to ask the guys at Dead Soxy this. Can you wear the Dead Soxy socks with cleats? Because of the patented no-slip technology, you don't want your socks slipping all around in that can cause issues, injuries, foot injuries, ankles. Non-slip socks from Dead Soxy, which I actually have on right now, and they're very comfortable.
Are they slipping?
What's that?
Are they slipping at all?
Well, of course not. I mean, they are stuck. They are here. They're here to stay, but they're stuck, but they are very comfortable. And so here's the cool thing. You can get Dead Soxy's patented no-slip technology, their boardroom line, which is their dress socks, or their ankle no-show socks that you can wear like with tennis shoes. And you can get 35% off. You maybe just missed their buy one, get one free sale. If so, that's a bummer. Sorry. But you can still get 35% off. So go to deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY.com, and you enter the code HOLIDAYPRO. Wes just put it up there on the screen for those of you that are on the stream. Go there and you'll get 35% off your entire order with Dead Soxy. So appreciate their support of the show. Make sure you get yourself some awesome socks from Dead Soxy.
John on the old Facebook says, what is an accurate 40-yard dash time for Lucas Doty? I would say he's a 4.5 guy, right? That's I think that's safe to say. He's actually straight line one of the fastest guys on the team. So that sort of gives you an idea. Let's see if we got any other questions that I may have missed. I don't think we do. Yeah, I don't see any more. So recruiting wise, by the way, if y'all haven't seen it, Chris, did you see the way that Sam Reynolds' team won a state championship last night?
I did. That was insane.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, you can see it on our Twitter, twitter.com/GamecockCentral. You can see it on GamecockCentral.com. Free story. Go on there, check it out. Basically, his team was down by 9 with less than 30 seconds to go. Blocked a punt, returned the blocked punt for touchdown, got the onside kick, actually got two PIs called, and then hit a field goal that, I mean, went in by like a foot as time expired to come back and win the game.
Dude that blocked the punt, blocked it, and scooped and scored it. Doing work. Good stuff. Do you know what kind of game Sam had in that game? Did you see any stats on him?
I couldn't find stats.
I haven't seen it either yet. Yeah, that was awesome. Thompson, man, great. I think undefeated season for them.
Yes.
But to close out, they've been outstanding all year. And so, yeah, Sam Reynolds has had a nice season for them as well.
Let's see. Somebody said Luke is faster than a 4.5. Shy Smith runs a 4.2. No offense, but I'd love to see anybody get out there and run an actual 4.2. I think that is a case of inflated 40-yard dashes as opposed to like legit NFL testing laser 40. Now, Shai is clearly, I would say, if not the fastest, one of the fastest couple of guys on the team. So he sets the standard for South Carolina. And I hope, Chris, that Shai gets a combine invite because I don't know what Shai would run. But I would love to see that.
I think he'll put up a good time. Last year, just for a comparison point, two SEC guys actually ran the fastest times last combine. Zedrick Woods from Ole Miss, who was last seen in 2018 out there saving touchdowns for Ole Miss in that Carolina game, running guys down from behind. He ran a 4.29, and Jamel Dean, who was a corner at Auburn, ran a 4.3. And those times are not times you could call typical. Those are really, really fast. Another guy, curious to see what J.C. Horn will run too if he decides to run at the combine. I've been picking up some stuff from scouts that if he runs well at the combine, that he's potentially going to solidify himself as a first rounder if he runs well enough.
All right, so we've got a couple more questions. Greg wants to know when we're going to have another you versus me 40-yard dash.
Next summer.
Yeah, next summer.
Yeah.
Let's see. And Greg, oh man, question of the day. Officially, question of the day from Jayhawk on YouTube. Who has the cooler name? Kentucky's Cavassier Smoke. Is that how you spell it? Is that how you say that?
I think it is.
V. Tonka Hemingway. Two world-class, all-American type, all-name teams right there. I can't go against Tonka, but Smoke is a pretty awesome name as well. So complete cop-out answer. I'm giving them a tie.
I got to get Smoke's the cooler name because it's both Hemingway. It's a good name. It's just fairly unremarkable. You got with Cavassier Smoke, you have a double awesomeness in that name. So I would go with that.
Most of the degenerates are going with Smoke as well. All right, let's close it out, man. Brandon says, do y'all agree that new coach will be named Sunday? I'm thinking Ray is waiting for the season to be over. Christopher.
It could be. It could be Sunday. It could be Monday. But it still depends on a variety of factors. There are certain logistical things that have to take place once the process gets wrapped up. There's still some questions to be answered. And so I couldn't point to a day and say, yeah, it's going to be Sunday or yeah, it's going to be Monday. I do think by this weekend, at least behind the scenes, there's going to be a clarity on direction. And then things will start building towards getting ready to make an announcement. But, I couldn't say with any level of certainty, when that's going to be or if it's definitely going to be Sunday. I do think it'll be soon. Yeah,
I think Sunday is just a very specific day but I think the general thought process of around then is kind of safe to say. My buddy Jason Brown wants to know who would win a 40-yard dash between me and MC Brown. I would smoke MC Brown in a 40-yard dash. I can promise you that. Brandon wants to know Tim Biakabatuka, the former Panthers running back, all-time, all-name team. And Greg, we'll hit one more. Greg says, what are your thoughts on the ability of a staff to fill out the roster with transfer portal at receiver, maybe a left tackle? I think, Chris, that has to be the approach. I don't even know if I stop there. If there's a linebacker that I think can help, if there's a DB I think can help, if there's a pass rusher I think can help. We have seen, what would you say? Arkansas going and getting Felipe Franks and finding a quarterback in the portal. Rutgers, they brought in a bunch of transfer. BC brought in some transfers and have sort of been able to keep themselves ahead of the normal schedule. as far as what you think of a rebuild being, you have to be careful, I think, as far as building your culture of you don't want to build a team around a lot of short-term options, right?
Mhm.
But people aren't patient anymore on waiting on you to win.
Yeah.
And as glaring as some of the holes on this roster are, I would also say there are some positions where you have some guys to build around. So if you can go, I would say, and get multiple receivers that could come in and help you, that could go a long way towards having an offense that could go from struggling this year to being potentially pretty decent next year.
Yeah, I think the one caution in terms of the transfer portal, yes, South Carolina needs to utilize it. I think it would be huge if they could pluck a few guys who can really help you out of it. But, the questions to be answered are who's in there, can they help you, and what's the competition like? I mean, South Carolina is not the only school like man on an island looking around going, I think we'll use the transfer portal this year. Like even some big time schools may look around and say, let's utilize the transfer portal. I mean, Florida brought in, Trayvon Grimes a while back, and Van Jefferson. This was last year. Ole Miss got Kenny Yeboah. I mean, there's some schools that even if they have a good offense or good defense, they may look to add a piece, and maybe some of those schools are brand name schools, and you're going to have competition. So the transfer portal is not going to be like just the recruiting marketplace in general, high school and junior college. It's a little tougher there. You have to find guys that are the right fit. You have to still battle other schools for them sometimes, how many guys are out there. And so you don't want to stake your entire strategy for next season or in the future on the transfer portal. But that said, it does need to be part of it, if at all possible. And then it's tough to balance all your numbers, in your regular recruiting class. So it's going to be an interesting task.
All right, y'all. I think that's going to do it for today's show. We'll be back on Friday, I believe 2 p.m. to sort of close out the week, talk a little bit more about the game. We'll give you, of course, a Friday coaching search update heading into the weekend as well. Appreciate Justin Rowland for joining us. Appreciate all of you for joining us as well. Remember that if you want to get on GamecockCentral.com and you're not a subscriber, come check us out. The code is GCPOD. That'll get you 30 days free. You can read all of our coaching search updates. And once again, appreciate Dead Soxy. Check them out, deadsoxy.com. And appreciate our title sponsor at Affordable Medical Equipment. Check them out, affordablemedicalusa.com, home of the game day chair. Chris, you got anything else, man?
No, appreciate everybody joining today. Had fun, and let's do it again soon.
Yeah, we'll do it again. For Chris, I'm Wes.